Today, the poem that I am going to explain and interpret is the poem which is known as the Bowl poem, which is written by John Berryman. It's a very interesting poem which is uh, reflecting about the loss of something we hold as very precious. Normally, we hold in everyone's life something very precious. Maybe that what we have got during our birthday or as a gift that we have received from a favorite friend. Like that, there are so many things that we hold as possessions and very precious, which we don't like to lose it very often, and we may not use it because by using it we may lose it. So we really keep it in our house, in the open house or in open room where everyone would be able to see. So we always preserve something always very precious. But look at the situation when we lose it. When we lose it, we will put our hands on our head and we will say, "Oh my God, I lost it." And what a pathetic condition through which we will be going through. And we will cry over and over, telling that we lost something that was very, very close to us. And we will try our level best to find it. Whichever way is possible, we will give our best to find out what is lost. So, this particular poem, Bowl poem, which I am going to interpret in my own way, in the context of the interpretation given and the meaning applied by the poet John Berryman. I will try to make it very simple. Let me try to help out class 10 students to understand and realize the tragedy of this poem. Here, the poet is actually presenting a boy who had a ball in his hand. You know, children as they are, they like to have something on their own for their own enjoyments, like ball, toys, and precious things in their hand. So when they lose, they will start crying. So the poet at the beginning of this poem, in the first line itself, gives a very clear picture of a boy who lost the ball and seeing the ball bouncing merrily and reaching the harbor. So this is the picture, visual picture that is given by the poet. So here at the beginning itself you can see in the first line, what is the boy now? Look at the boy who has lost his ball. What is he to do? I saw it go, merrily bouncing down the street and then merrily over there. It is in the water. Look at the poetic lines given here by John Berryman to express the feeling of the boy who is actually watching the ball bouncing merrily and reaching the harbor in the street and in the water. Very interesting visual is presented here. So what is the boy now? What has he to do now? He lost the ball and the ball is out of his hand. Something we wanted to hold in our hand very tight because it is so precious to us. It could be a thing or it could be a person, and we lose it. So at the time when we lose it, we can experience the tragic moment, the feeling that we are undergoing. And the same feeling is also seen in the face of this small boy who lost the ball, who was playing, and he sees the ball bouncing merrily and going. See, the later on I will speak about the poetic devices used here. It is very interesting. And down the street, look at that. It is not only um, being lost around him, but it is just bouncing merrily and going away from his hand. And that is down the street. And then merrily over again. There it is in the water. You can see the agony and the pain the boy is undergoing. That is what the poet is trying to uh, describe here, the feeling of the boy. Look at the boy's expression on his face. If you have, if you happen to go through such a kind of a tragic experience, you would understand the feeling of the boy, how he feels about the loss of the ball which was in his hand. We can apply this simple reasoning here for our students. Sometimes we hold certain things very precious, and when we lose, how we feel. Similarly, when we see someone else losing something very precious to them, we should also have some empathy towards them. That is what the poet is trying to bring out through these few lines. Again, no use to say, oh, there are other balls. So, very nicely the poet is putting up. No use to say. It is not necessary to say that there are other balls. Why do you cry? Is it necessary for you to shed your tears? You can purchase again. The balls can be purchased. But there is another thing that cannot be purchased, the feeling of loss. You lost something and that feeling cannot be purchased. That painful situation and the thing that you kept closer to your heart cannot be purchased very easily with money. That is what the poet is trying to say. No use to say there are other balls. Money can purchase other balls, but it is no use, because other balls, if I purchase or if I purchase and give to the boy will not be happy at all, because he was not holding the new things as precious, but he was holding something very old as precious in his hand. An ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. See, the poet says, ultimate shaking grief fixes the boy. It means to say that he was very, very saddened by the loss of his ball, and he was really under great grief. And that painful situation fixes something in his mind. What is that? That is the most important part of it. So, grief fixes the boy as he stands rigid, very rigid, not flexible at all, very stern, looking at the way that the ball is bouncing merrily and going and trembling, staring down as his young days into the harbor where his ball went. So, as he was watching, he began to feel something, and that painful grief fixes his mind on certain decisions in his mind. He started thinking very cleverly. See, he began to think, what I hold is being lost now, and that painful feeling now will have no much meaning in his life. So instead of that one, he has to think something else. Something else he has to do. What is that? I would not, the poet says, I would not intrude on him. I will not create a kind of a nearness to him and disturb his inner feeling. That is why intruder, one who is coming inside without a permission. I will not enter into his life and involve in his life to make him happy or interact with him. That is what the poet says. He says very clearly, I would not intrude on him. Why? Because let me watch him. Okay, let me watch him climbing up the reality of life. Let me watch him taking the steps to make up what is being lost. He should not remain in the same way. He should know that he is growing up. One should not remain in the place where one thinks, okay, this was the best time of my life, I should remain as I am. But one should think, yes, the time has changed, my life has been changed, now I have to take another step. Maturity has come up. Now I have to move towards something else. And then he says again, I would not intrude on him a dime. Another ball is worthless. Yes, dime is a kind of a coin. It's a symbol, some like money. A dime. Another ball can be bought with money, but that is worthless. That is worthless. Why? Because that cannot replace the real feeling of preciousness. That is the reason. So now the poet says again, now he senses the first responsibility. You see that the poet comes up with one single word, that is now he comes to his senses. That means he senses his first responsibility. What is that? In the world of possessions, there is nothing permanent. Everything will be dead. So he says the first responsibility in the world of possessions is something different. What is that? One should realize that what we hold is not going to remain with us. We have to release it gradually. And then we should come to our own realization. We are not the same, but we are growing. Then the poet says, people will take balls. Balls will be lost always. Little boy, see that we can replace the ball with so many other things, precious things in our life. That is why the poet says, balls and balls we will be lost again. We can purchase, we can have so many balls in our life. That means so many precious things in our life. We think what we think is precious. There are so many of them. They are all things. They are all possessions, wealth, money, and so many things like that. People, persons, and vehicles. There are so many other things that are very precious in our life, which we think we are living with them. But the poet says we will lose these things one day. The poet is creating a conscious awareness in the mind of the boy, and that is the first sense of responsibility creeping in the mind of the boy. And then he says, and no one buys a ball back. See that what is lost. You should not go around the ball which is lost, or around something precious that is lost, and go on crying. You want to get only that. My God, you have to give up. What is gone is gone. You cannot go on crying over that and then paying the price of the time and enjoyment. You cannot go on like that. We have to change our mind to something new. You have lost something, you need to go to something new. That's why the poet says, okay, no one buys a ball back, which means to say that you cannot go on crying over what is lost. You have to stand on another step. And then poet comes to a conclusion. Money is external, my dear. Something that we attain from our work. Money is external. Money can buy anything. But there is something that money cannot buy. That is inner feeling, inner happiness. Money which cannot be used there. Then, so from all this, the poet is concluding, he is learning. Here the boy is learning something about his own life. What is that? Well, behind his desperate eyes. So here desperate eyes here is referring to the feeling that the boy was undergoing when he lost the ball, merrily bouncing along the street and went to the harbor and to the water. That the boy was watching, and that was a desperate eyes. Means, oh, what to do now? I have lost that precious thing from my hand. Now how will I get it back? That desperate eyes and that desperate feeling which he was undergoing. And that is the epistemology of loss. That is the theory of losing something. So he understood the theory of losing something. What is that? The theory of losing something means epistemology here means the theory of knowledge. So we have received some knowledge through this particular event of the boy. What is that? Yes, we cannot hold on to what is lost. We have to jump on to something new, and we have to continue our life. We cannot go on crying and feeling sad and remain disappointed and desperate over something that we have lost from our hand. And finally, the poet comes to a very good conclusion for the present day students. What is that? How to stand up. Now we have learned how to stand up. That is the epistemology of loss. Don't remain in the realm of loss sensitivity. We need to stand up. That is the meaning here. So epistemology here is referring to you have to stand up. How will you stand up? Knowing what every man must one day know, and most know many days how to stand up. Very interesting lines are given by the poet where he says we need to stand up. Means we need to come to a realization that we should not remain in the same way. We have to sensibly stand up and become new and fight against the loss energy, the loss expressions, and the fight against something which is so negative in our life. So poet John Berryman is giving something very, very precious and very important for the present day students, and I am sure that class 10 students will be able to understand better if they listen to this video sometimes and bring out a good conclusion. Your conclusion should be a good fiery message to the young students and young generation. So my dear students, please try to understand this with your good intelligence and memory. Have a nice day. Thank you.